Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Mrs. Pullen, and I want to go over a portion of the desmos activity that is for the 6.13 true proportion z-test lesson and give you direction on what I need you to do for your part of the data collection. So first, you're going to go to the 6.13 true proportion z-test folder and click on the appropriate link to the desmos activity. Period 3 will go to the period 3 link, and period 7, obviously, we go to the period 7. I'm going to demonstrate on the period 3 link. So you're going to click on the link, and it's going to take you to the activity 9.3, significant test for true proportions. And you're going to continue. I'm continuing, obviously, as me. I already had you watch the video in class from Mythbusters on the yawning seed problem, whether or not yawning is contagious. And you're going to skip slide 2. Let me explain to you the information that was provided for the Mythbuster results. So the study had a sample size of 50, and 34 people were in the Yawnseed group, and 16 people were in the non-Yawnseed group. In other words, the Yawnseed group is where someone started yawning, and the theory is that other people are going to yawn because it's contagious. So we're Mythbusters was investigating this. So the results showed of all the subjects, whether you were in Yawnseed or not, 14 subjects yawned. So that would be 14 over 50, or 28% of the subjects. So the first thing they want you to do is calculate what is the difference in the proportion. So put the video on hold, go to that link, and please fill in P1 hat and P2 hat. And again, the difference between the two. I suspect most of you have done that, but if you haven't, now's a good time to start. Okay, so 10 over 34 was the first proportion, 4 over 16 or 0.25 was the second proportion, and I entered this wrong. By the way, you can do actual calculations right inside Desmos. Just click on that link. And so I'm going to do 10 divided by, or actually I can create this as a fraction and get rid of that, just in case you aren't aware of what Desmos can do for future activities. Minus 4 divided by 16, and it gives you the appropriate difference. So you go to the next slide. Do the data provide some evidence that yawning is contagious? What and why? So put the video on hold, and you don't actually have to type it up unless you want to, but what do you think? So yeah, there's some evidence because you saw that in the Yawnseed group, we had a proportion of 0.295, close to 30%, who yawned. And in the non-Yawnseed group, we only had 25%. So let's go to the next slide. Adam Savage and I don't know how to pronounce her last name, the co-host of Mythbusters, used the data to conclude that yawning is contagious. Do you agree? So put the video on hold and think about the potential answers. Now, there's no clear-cut answer to this. You may have said yes. I said no because there's only a 4% difference, and there were only 50 people in the entire study. So if you take 50 times 0.04, that's 2 additional people. Is that a big enough difference? It's possible that it just could have happened purely by chance. So in this activity, your class is going to investigate whether the results of the experiment are statistically significant, or could they have occurred purely by chance due to random assignment. So the situation is we only had 50 people. Ideally, we would like to see this study conducted on more people, but it's very difficult to get people to participate in this study. So we're going to be doing a simulation in class, and it's very important that you understand how a simulation works. So first, I want you to put the video on hold and type in, because this I do want you to type, what do you think the null hypothesis is in this study? So we're really comparing the two proportions, the proportion of people that were yawning in the yawn-seed group, and the second proportion, the number of yawners in the non-yawn-seed group. So you start off with almost all the time with saying there's really no difference between the two proportions. So one way of writing it is P sub 1, it should be a subscript, P1 minus P2 is equal to 0, but that also could be P1 is equal to P2. That, in other words, you're assuming yawning is not contagious. And you're suspecting that the alternative, that if P1 is the yawn-seed group, you would expect a higher proportion of yawners. So you can write that as P1 minus P2 is greater than 0, or P1 is greater than P2. And that means what you're trying to establish is that yawning is contagious. Okay. So, in a second, you're going to be doing the simulation, which is what I need for you to do tonight, and you're going to be doing 3 trials of it. We're trying to simulate the situation. So we're going to let numbers 1 through 14 represent the yawners, and 16 through 50 to represent the people that don't yawn. Well, where are we getting these numbers? Because that could be kind of confusing. Like, where are those numbers coming from? It's going back to the original data that we're trying to simulate. So we are going to say we're going to have one group, one simulation that's going to represent the 34 yawn-seed group, and another that represents the non-yawn-seed group. And we want to keep to that probability of getting this result of 14 yawners. And that means 36 non-yawners. So we want 28% of whatever the sample, the number of people in the group, to be the yawners. So what are you going to do? It's a lot of talk for something that's much simpler. You're going to the next slide, and I'm just going to demonstrate on trial 1, and you're going to hit random assignment. And if you count the number of random numbers, this first group represents the yawn-seed group, and there are actually 34 numbers in here. And the non-yawn-seed group has 16 members in it. Again, it matches the chart, the data. And so you want to count first in the yawn-seed group, you want to find the proportion of yawners. So you start counting. So any number that's 14 or less is a yawner. So we have 6 is less, so that's 1. 8, that's 2. 11, that's 3. 3 is 4. Then we have 7, that's 5. 10 is 6. 13 is 7. And I have 8 yawners. So one proportion, which you're going to write down, is 8 out of 34, and that's for group 1. Then you're going to do the same thing for the non-uriners. Again, we're still assuming numbers 0 through 14 represent, 1 through 14 represent the uriners. So I have 1, 2 is 14 is 2, 1 is 3, 5 is 4, 6 is 9, or 9 is 6, and that's it. So I have, for the non-UNC group, I have 6 out of 18. So you're going to repeat that process 2 more times, and then you're going to record those proportions into this table. So you're going to do that 3 times, and then you're going to write down the pieces of information. So I had 8 out of 34 for my first trial for the UNC group, and 6 out of 18 for the non-UNC group. And then you're going to, you can actually, if you don't have a calculator, just calculate it here. 8 divided by, I guess I have to write it here. It's the second time I made that mistake. 34 minus 6 out of 18. Oh, this should be 16, so I'm going to have to correct that now. There are only 16 members. And this is 6 out of 16. And you're going to perform that 2 more times. And I do need you to do this tonight so we can finish this up. It should only take 5 minutes. So we're going to get all your data for each of the classes separately, and then we're going to talk about it tomorrow only for 5 minutes. Okay, thank you so much for participating, and I will see you tomorrow.